we are joined today by Melanie Arenss, who is the founder of Later On Lawyers. And we've got our content genius, Charlie, here with us as well, guiding the ship. Today is a really, really interesting and special episode because we are going to have a conversation with Melanie about how she got to where she got to today. And I think personally, it's a really, really interesting story. And it's not a story you hear about all the time. And what makes it a really unique and special story is how Later On Lawyers came to be. And it has come off the back of a very unexpected journey, really. So, Melanie, thanks for joining us today, and over to you.
A pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's hard to know where to start, but I'll probably start slightly, as far back as I can, which, I did law as an undergraduate degree, and I did that 2001 to 2004 at Southampton University. I didn't do law as an A-level, so it was completely sort of new, but I was always interested in law, and I've been thinking recently about what was it that sort of sparked my interest. And I always sort of peddle this story about, I watched too much Ally McBeal growing up. But actually, when I've been reflecting on it in recent weeks, I thought a major motivating factor was actually the Jamie Bulger case, which many people will be familiar with, but I was the same age as the two boys that perpetrated that offence when it happened. And I think I grew up with that case. It was such a life-changing, in the media. And then I studied at school, we studied media, and it was all about the demonisation of youth and young people in the media. And it definitely sparked an interest in me, because when it came to undergrad, I chose to study youth justice and evidence and procedure, criminal law, human rights, which that case interfaced all of those. So yes, it was an overdose on Ally McBeal and all of the classic courtroom dramas. And yes, it was a bit of, this is a logical sense, I don't know what to study, but if I'm going to study business or politics or history, I might as well do law, because I could go and then go on and be a lawyer if I like it afterwards. So it was head and heart that led to that decision. But when
This video is sponsored by Lexstreet, the first free online community for aspiring lawyers pursuing a legal career in England and Wales. Inside the community, you will gain access to our courses, legal career consulting programs, forum, free resources, and live events, which we run every month, covering a range of topics, including legal applications, legal interviews, advocacy events, and we host guest speakers from across the legal profession who share their tips and tricks on how to secure a training contract and pupillage. You can sign up for free at lexstreet.com, and we look forward to welcoming you inside our legal community.
Once I found it hard, and I really enjoyed the bits of law that I enjoyed, and I really didn't enjoy the bits of law that I didn't enjoy.
What didn't you enjoy?
What did I enjoy?
What didn't you enjoy?
Constitutional law, land law.
Right, yeah.
And I was regaling to one of the people that I mentor that, we're only weeks into the course, we were asked to do a moot, and that just put the fear of God into me. I went to the dean of my faculty and I said, I can't do that. The thought of standing on my feet and arguing a case and having to be so quick, that's just not me. I'm very much someone who likes to be buried in the books, and then let me scroll away in my room, and then I'll come up with a good essay in 2 days. That's me. So that's the thing. But then the great thing about obviously undergrad is you have a whole host of different modules that you can choose. And I really didn't like law exams, so I went for coursework heavy subjects. And as I say, I did all of those sort of social justice, person orientated.
And that was between 2001 and 2003/4.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you brought up the Bulger case. Obviously that shocked the nation, that case. Yeah. I just had a look there, and I think they were convicted at Preston Crown Court on the 24th of November 1993. So almost 10 years later, that kind of the significance of that case it sounds like opened the door for you and going into law.
Yeah.
And at that time, roughly 2001 to 2004, when you graduated, you had your bad modules, you had your good modules. What happens at the point when you graduate? Did you know when you're doing it, okay, I'm going to have a career in law, or I don't want a career in law? Or did you come to a realization at the end of it that I'm going to do something else for a time being? How did that kind of play out?
So when everyone, you know, in the holidays were hustling for vacation schemes and people were applying for training contracts, I was working in a children's nursery. I did nannying in my holidays. I just really loved being around little ones, and I babysat from a very young age. I always loved childcare, and but then I did my academic studies. So I actually came out of university with, okay, what do I do? I've got these interests in the human rights and the social justice. My paid experience has been in retail and childcare. What do I do? And so I'd really wanted to have a gap year before I went to uni, but I think the parents weren't too keen on that one. So after uni, it was straight off to Thailand.
Right. Okay. Lovely.
And doing some traveling, and then
where in Thailand did you go?
Oh, all the islands, Koh Samui, Koh Tao, Koh Phangan. And I actually went back there last year, but with the kids. And so that was a completely different, that's like full circle.
Yeah.
Different vibe, but fun to relive the memories. So what did I do? All I know is I signed up to do the LPC and I put the deposit down on it. And then I just got totally cold feet and just thought, no,
you
not ready for it.
You pay the deposit.
It was only a few £100, but I suppose it showed my commitment. And then I just remember that thinking, I'm just going to lose that money. And I'm just not ready to go back. To go back to study. I just wanted to kind of get some lived experience. And I just, I'd gone straight from school, college, university. And then I knew it'd be LPC, TC, and then, straight into a big job, and it's just,
Did you lose the deposit before you went away to Thailand or after you got back?
I can't actually remember so I was just thinking as I was saying it, I can't fully remember the order of how this all unraveled, but what happened was I moved back home to live with my dad in my hometown, which is Worthing. And I got a local job, and I worked as a receptionist in a careers firm company. But that company, which was called Babcock Connections, so they worked with teenagers and young people. They had a specialist team that were these intensive support personal advisors, and they worked with the young people that had lots of welfare needs, difficulties, were struggling, and they were a specialist team to hire. Mandate was trying to help them get back into education. And actually then that's where I ended up working for them ultimately, but that wasn't before I spent 4 years working in youth justice. So that youth justice bit with the criminal law and the Jamie Bulger case, actually I ended up volunteering with the Youth Offending Service, doing mentoring and sitting on their community panels. And then I got a job with them. And that was my introduction to my career in effectively social care and youth work, although I never qualified as a social worker.
So it sounds like you finished, you went full circle back to the younger part of you who wanted to go traveling and to kind of honor and fulfill that promise after you finished. So you go away, I'm assuming the time of your life, island hopping around Thailand. So that's absolutely magical. And then you come back, and do you do the youth justice work first? Did you do that?
So I started volunteering. It was the voluntary work with what was called the yacht then. And I think a lot of that yacht that sprung out of, again, the Bulger case, and we've got what are we going to do about young offenders, offending behaviour, and it's creating this multidisciplinary team with.
What did you think of that? Because I know to date there are some I don't know too much about you probably know a lot more, but I know there are certain institutions across the UK that house some of the worst youth offenders. Some of them have quite infamous names where the worst or the most dangerous children or offending behaviour children go to. What was it like being inducted into that world of youth crime at that level, where you're working for the youth offenders team, and just seeing that? Because as a mother today, having that experience, seeing, let's say, where people come from very different homes and what path they can go down, how was that experience seeing that?
So the way that the service was structured at that time is it was everything from children that hadn't even offended yet, or they would just come in for theft of a Mars bar. And obviously we have a very young age of criminal responsibility in this country. So actually I was tasked working with children as young as 8 to 13, and my work was crime prevention. This was the very beginning end of just very early offending and antisocial behaviour. So I wasn't involved in high level crime or secure units or anything like that, but as part of my training I visited them. But what I will say is I have found excuse me, all of that 15 years that I spent working with children and young people, very humbling, very grounding, so insightful. So a child will come in for, let's say, theft of a Mars bar, but we would do a full assessment on them on all areas of their life. And, the Mars bar is the least of the problem. 8 times out of 10, there's a whole host of, and that was the problem, was you've kind of then opened up the can on welfare needs and what's going on at home and why are they out late at night, or unsupervised neglect issues. It could be a whole host of mental health issues. And so, obviously it's all really come to the fore in recent weeks because everyone's talking about the Netflix Adolescence.
I started that today.
I just I've just finished it today, which is mind blowing. And that this is never going to, it's not going to be an issue that's going to be easily solved. I mean, obviously it's got a whole new dimension with social media, which when I was practicing wasn't so much of a big thing. I don't think the children had phones then. It's a whole new dimension to the problems that, and the issues that young people face. But at the end of the day, they're children, they were all children. And I really, really enjoyed that work. It was very challenging, but
it's interesting as well, because I think watching Adolescence, first episode very much took me, because I read a lot about the Bulger case, took me to almost seeing those boys in that boy in the Netflix series. And I think it's fascinating when you compare the classic systems in Europe in terms of how Norway and the Nordic countries deal with youth. And if you look at, for example, to date, those boys' inability to reintegrate back in, they're obviously been identified, even with whatever's happened to them in terms of their identity changes. For one of them, I know it's almost been impossible. Then you have the bereaved parents as well, who naturally are going to feel the way that they do forever about what happened to their child. And it's you look at how other countries do it, and then you look at how we do it here, and it does raise that question about the youth. That age-old question is: should they be, whatever the crime, should their identity be protected because they are children? Or then that is always balanced against, well, do the public have the right to know who these people are and whose communities they may end up joining in the future? So I think it's interesting having you on and like briefly touching on that, because it's not only is it sounds like it was your first steps into the profession, but then obviously you've gone on to do youth work, seen it firsthand, and I'm sure you've did your opinion. It's a 2-point question. One is, were you ever cynical about youths after finishing that experience?
Was I cynical about, sorry?
Were you ever cynical about some youths after that, or did you always maintain the view that they are children?
I always maintained the view that they were children. And I do recall of frequently thinking once, because obviously I had a very intimate look into their life. I would do assessments in their family home. I would meet their parents. I had a real, I spent a lot of time with them as well. We'd do, a lot of projects. I was, taking them to different activities, seeing them in their holidays. And so often I would go into those homes and I would think, I'm actually stunned that you're not worse, like that your children are so resilient. And actually some of the, the chaos and the home life and the difficulties that the parents were facing and the challenges they were facing, bringing up young children, obviously their behavior was extremely challenging. The schools are struggling to maintain it. I wouldn't say I ever felt cynical. That doesn't say I didn't find their behavior really challenging. I mean, it was really difficult at times, and also I feel it's very difficult. We used to do a lot of activities and put a lot of resource into trying to support the children to do diversionary activities, like getting involved in sports and clubs. But obviously it's the local authority, it's local government, there it's very resource limited. And if we would withdraw, then often those things that we'd introduce wouldn't be maintained. And so that's really hard, where the parents aren't able to continue to make it that worthwhile intervention. It feels maybe as only good as good as it lasts, as long as we're involved, and we cannot be involved indefinitely. So probably I'd say more cynical about the system. It was, everyone there was definitely doing their best and passionate about the work, and it's just you're very limited in terms of what you can do. It's very short term.
Last question on
that
side of stuff. I appreciate we've gone off a bit of tangent, but I thought it was interesting to go into is, has it or did it inform the way in which you bring your own kids up?
I think it must have done. I suppose I really see the value in investing in your children. I've obviously done a lot of training. Things that have really stood out to me are things about children that have experienced sort of neglectful upbringing. They don't have a strong sense of identity. And so children are often not asked, they might sort of come out as a teen and not actually know, like no one's really asked them, like, what's your favorite food? What's your favorite color? What do you like? So they haven't got to rebuild their identity from scratch almost. So yeah, I think it definitely has shaped me as a mum. And obviously I love being around little ones. I'm fascinated by child development. I have dedicated my life to it. I'm really interested. So all of those experiences, as well as all the nannying that I've done, I've had so many different experiences of different parenting styles, and you kind of take the bits and say, this is what I want. But ultimately, yes, it has made me want to be a very sort of as present and involved in my children's upbringing as I can. And then trying to do that as qualifying as a lawyer, that has been a real challenge, because this industry, it's not an easy option. It is a long hours culture. It's a massive investment of time. Effectively, what I've experienced is this sort of tussle between me wanting to spend more time with my children, but also obviously wanting to be a lawyer and be a good one. And then this tension with the law firms that I've worked in, where they want more, and everything you're giving more to your employer, it's a missed bedtime or it's a missed this, and it's just that's been a real challenge for me. It's this interface of
being pulled between the two. I'm trying to take it in a way so I just don't miss anything, in the sense that 2003-04 you finish university. We've done 4 years in the youth justice system, but between 2004 and to the present day, it's almost 20 years.
Yeah.
So what is it between that journey? So we've done 4 or 5 years that brought you back. Why did you come back?
So I never really left. I've always had it in my head that if I'm going to be a lawyer, I'm going to be a human rights lawyer or a child rights lawyer. I'm not going to be a conveyancer or, it's just like, I was very tunnel vision. So what happened was I continued with my career in, as I call it, social care, sort of broad umbrella, but I worked in youth justice, youth homelessness. I did 8 years with children leaving care. So I had this whole career, but in the background, I did a master's in human rights law, and I was always applying for training contracts at human rights law firms and getting nowhere.
Right.
And what I think I've now, on reflection, come to realise would have been beneficial to me is if I had have left my social work career and taken on a role as a paralegal, because I think that's of a real value to the law firms. And I think I was doing these training contract applications saying, I've got all these academics and here's all my experience. But I think really I may have been able to have more success or sped the process up by actually leaving. But that felt like a really big decision for me, because paralegals isn't the best paid. I didn't not like my career. It felt like such a big risk to leave. And I thought I could leave and I don't have a guarantee that I will then end up getting a training contract and be able to finish up as a lawyer. So, I just did various bits of work experience over the years. I left my job in social care around about 2009, I think it was. And I went abroad to Switzerland and I did internships in Geneva in NGO charities there. So again, that was human rights based, and I got involved with Defence for Children International, and I did some internships for the Maltese Ministry, all around the age of criminal responsibility. So I did all of that, but then the recession hit, and it was really hard to kind of again get this kind of human rights consultancy work off the ground. So I came back to the UK and I went back into social care.
When did you come back?
Must have been about 2010, I think. Yeah.
2010. Come back in 2010. When do you start applying for training contracts?
I've done it consistently. So I've literally been applying, I'd say probably maybe year on year for about 12 years. Which I think is an incredible well of wisdom that you have and experience to kind of go through. What did you find was deeply challenging about the process? Because it is challenging. And then as you said, you get into and I think you're a real inspiration, because you are someone who stuck the course and just persevered with it really to get where you are today. And I'm going to touch on that. I'm going to come back to that, but I wanted, before I forget, just ask, while we're touching on, you come back in 2010, you've been doing work for the NGOs, and then you say, I'm going to start applying for training contracts. You said you've gone back into the youth justice work at this point. How are you finding the applications in terms of, are you getting any guidance on the process, any mentoring, any feedback on how they're going, or is it just a case of natural evolution? Yeah, I think it was probably natural evolution. I think when you said to me, like, what was the hardest thing? I think that was it. It was like the no feedback or no response. I can remember writing letters to law firms. I can remember chasing them up. I can remember emailing them. I've even been for interviews, and then you just don't hear back. Or they'll say, or they'll give you an email back, and they'll say, we'll give you feedback, and you chase for the feedback and you don't get the feedback. And where's the growth and the learning in that? That's just a rejection, and you just have to decide, what am I going to do about that? And I just, that's really hard. You're investing so much time. I mean, one of the applications I can remember having to do, I did like a handwritten letter, and like I had to do a whole piece of work, and it was like a portfolio I put forward to this law firm, and you just hear nothing, and it's just like it does feel soul destroying. And I think that's why one of my passions around starting later on lawyers and hearing about other, now that I've come to realize that it's not just me, like this is actually really so common. I at the time I felt like all my friends that I went to law school with were just powering on through their law careers. They bagged themselves a training contract. They were rising through the ranks, their partners, and I'm still sending out training contract applications. So, that could be, I suppose, a bit demoralising. It was very demoralising. And you have periods where you stop and you think, well, no, that's it. And actually, my law degree expired. That's another thing. When I did my law degree, it had a shelf life of something like 7 years, or maybe, yeah. And so around about 2010, I think it expired. And I was like, well, that's that door closed. And then I think it might have been something like the Legal Services Act. I tried to find this out once, what reinstated it, where they changed the law and said, no, actually, it doesn't matter about how old your law degree is. So, they dust off the law degree, I'm back in the game again. So it opened it up.
It was a question I had for you, which was, what did you do in terms of the law degree itself? The places that you're applying to, where were you applying specifically? Are you applying for human rights places? Yeah. Yeah,
so I would just go to Legal 100, top 20 places for human rights, Bindman's, Lead Day, Hodge, Jones, Allen. I would just literally go through them and just do as many as I could.
When did things start to change?
I don't know what happened in 2017. So I had a 2-year-old at this point, and I just thought, I saw a application, training contracts for a law firm near me, which was a regional firm, commercial. But I think what happened, I tell you what had changed, was also I opened my mind a bit, and I thought, I'm so tunnel vision with this human rights law and cold face of human rights and Bindman's. Actually, human rights is everything. It's employment law, it's discrimination, it's family law. There's called a protection. I started to really open my mind about what it is it in me that wants to do human rights law. Ultimately, I'm really interested in social justice. I want it to be meaningful. If it relates to people, it somehow connects with me. And so I guess I opened my mind, and then I just put in an application for this law firm. They'd won awards for things like work-life balance and the quality of their training contract. And it was the first interview that I got offered in all these years of applying, and I got offered it.
When you get that interview, what year was the interview? What year did that come through?
2017.
What was that feeling like? Like, do you remember where you were when that came through?
When I got offered the training contract?
Or when you got offered the invitation to interview?
Well, because it's me, of course, there's a story with it. So I got offered the interview, and I replied, and I said yes, and I never heard back. And it was getting back very close to the date, and I was thinking, this isn't good. I haven't even asked me about, it's a whole day assessment thing. They haven't even said, bring your own lunch. I haven't got anything about the details. I was emailing, I was ringing. And the day before the due date of the assessment centre, they said, yeah, we've just, they finally got back to me. Yes, sorry, well, we never got your response to say that you've got the interview, to say yes. I said, I've literally been hounding you. I said, well, I'm sorry, there's, there isn't a space, all the space has been filled. And they said, hang on, we're just waiting for one candidate to come back and say whether they've got whether they can do it or not. And they rang me up an hour later. And I remember this, it was 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the day before the assessment centre. And they said, that candidate's dropped out, so there is a space for you now, so you can do it tomorrow, but all the other candidates have been given a presentation that they've been preparing for, had 2 weeks to prepare. So you've got to prepare a presentation for the partners tomorrow. And these are the 3 topics, and it was GDPR, something technical, and Brexit we were going through. And it was I've been watching a lot of Brexit stuff that summer. I was like, right. And my older sister, she works in marketing. She's like, Mel, I've got a brilliant thing on GDPR. It's a marketing presentation. You can just, I can't learn GDPR. It's 4 p.m. It's nothing to do with the question. I'm going to have to go Brexit. And I think I went over to my friend's house, who's a lawyer, and she was brilliant. She just was like, right, Mel, da-da-da-da-da. And we just put this thing together. And You know, and the thing about Brexit was no one knew what they were doing with it. I was watching it all the time. I was like, the Prime Minister, the ministers don't know the answer, you know, to what is going to happen with all of these laws and all the rest of it. So I just pulled something out of the bag. And I think that obviously impressed them, you know, that I've been able to sort of just pull a presentation out overnight. And I did it and I got it. And I can remember I was in my garden when the head of the law firm called me, because they were calling everyone that evening. And I thought, oh, they'll have to go through all of these, 30 people in assessment centre. They'll probably call me next week. And he'd been calling me and I had been just in such a decompression of like, oh my God, that was horrendous. I have a glass of wine in the garden. And I looked at my phone, I've got like all these missed calls. And they're like, we wanted to call you when everyone was here to say, you know, you've got the training contract. Would you like some time to think about it? And I was like, I don't need any time to think about it. It's a yes. Like, oh my God.
I bet that was one of the most. Is it fair to say that was one of the biggest reliefs that you've ever had in?
Yeah, it was such a relief. It was like unbelievable. And then obviously the fear sets in of, right, oh my gosh, I've got to do this. And I've got to go back to uni. Mm-hmm. And then I went to go and I'll just go and join the University of Law and do my LPC. Can't get a student loan because I've done a master's, and you can't get a loan for a lower level degree. So, you know, then it's just all the logistics of, you know, got to go and get a personal loan, and which is actually cheaper than the student loan. So that was actually worked out well. But they
don't teach you that, do they?
They don't teach you that. Yeah, it's every cloud.
So you go back at that point, you do the LPC, you take a personal loan out to it. And this is now, I'm assuming, 2019?
Well, so I went that September. So yeah, I had to go back. So, yeah, because they were recruiting 2 years in advance. So they said, you're going to be on our 2019 cohort, which was perfect for me because I had the little one. And I said, I'll go. I did the University of Law on the weekends, their weekend part-time course, which was just perfect. I could carry on working in the week. I could have time with my little one and I could study. So that's what I did for 2 years. Yeah.
That finishes, you complete the course, you have your ceremony, and then in 2019 you start. We don't have to say who the firm is if you don't want to. I'm happy for us just to call it the firm. But you start at the firm, and my camera it has autofocus on. So for some reason it says blurring and not blurring. I need to turn that off. So you start with the firm in September 2019. What practice area are they doing?
That would have been so easy, wouldn't it, Taz? But again, this is me. So of course, I have a baby in my second year of university. I go back into my second year, 3 months pregnant, and all my exams were in the March, which was when my baby was born. So I did all my exams over that summer. The university was amazing, and she was only 5 months old when I was due to start my training contract. So I said to them, can I do it part-time or staggered? You know, she's so little. And they just said, look, we've got another mum on the course. She's actually deferred it. So we propose you defer it. So I deferred it, and I went back to my substantive role with the local authority, and then the pandemic hit. So then it got deferred again. So it's actually 4 years from being offered the training contract to starting it, and I had an extra child.
Right, okay.
And it was
all hands on deck.
It was all hands on deck, and we literally moved house the weekend before I started the training contract. So I had to go into the office, but we were still this was April 21. And so it was all still post-COVID things. It was nearly fully remote training contract, which was actually really hard. And it was in commercial property, which, as I said before, isn't my favourite. Well, I might have said that property wasn't one of my favourite modules, but anyway, not my favourite. And I found it really hard. And I thought, I've waited all this time to start the training contract. And I was sat at home next to my husband in the home office. Like, you know, I think it was nearly full time, like 1 day a week, I think I went in, maybe that. And they, commercial property, obviously post-COVID, super busy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Partners working super long hours. And that particular firm had got rid of all their secretaries during the pandemic. So as a mature person going into it, I could kind of see we're getting quite a lot of secretarial work as opposed to stuff that I really felt was going to be legal training. So it was a really challenging time, and I had another child. I had two children, which is a different ball game.
Yeah.
And so I'd managed to get some flexible working because the COVID bubbles were still in play. The childcare, you could only have your child in one childcare setting, which really was a nightmare for me because I'd had about 3 settings planned to make this all work. And so I managed to get 2 afternoons that were shorter, and that worked really well for me. But when I wanted to rotate my seats, they said you can't carry on doing that because the childcare thing has stopped now. That's September. And actually working full time and not having flexible working was a deal breaker for me. And the way that the firm dealt with it was a deal breaker for me because I had to jump through all of these hoops and I had to wait all this time. And then they said, no, you can't have it. And the supervisor said to me, it doesn't matter. He was working from home. I was working from home still so much. He said, it doesn't matter to me. And I just, that was, it was just a deal breaker. And then I really challenged them on it. And then they said, you can have flexible working, but you can only do quarter protection. And that's what you'll qualify into. And I also thought, well, that's just pigeonholing me. And I really wanted to experience family law. So having waited all this time to get a training contract, I then actually went and got another one.
Yeah,
and I approached a family law firm, and they would it was a family law firm, just small boutique firm, and they were just starting out, and they actually created the training contract for me. So it was just total serendipity that I asked them at that time, and he took me on, and it was on a part-time basis, which was what I really actually wanted, was to have the reduced hours. And that's where I did the rest of my training contract.
What was that conversation like with your previous employer, that it was a deal breaker for you and that you were leaving?
Well, what happened was I put forward this whole flexible work request and had to put all these reasons as to how I would make it work and things like that. And I think they said things like, I was just really challenged on the technicalities of it, because you couldn't put in 2 flexible work requests at that time. They just changed the law on this within a certain period. And effectively, I just went into a glass office in this law firm and had this long chat, really, really difficult conversation with the head of the whole, the head of HR, and was just reduced to kind of floods of tears, to be honest with you. And I just, the whole thing for me was just really
horrible.
It was horrible. And I just, even though eventually, and they said, what is the problem here, Melanie? And I said, I just want to see my children more. And then they sort of switched, and it was like, oh, well, we could do this, we could do that. And I thought, why have I had to be reduced to this point to get, when you already had it in you, in your gift to do this? So even though I kind of won it, it was such a poor indicator to me of the culture of that firm, that and also, of course, then they said you can only do quarter protection, and that's what you'll qualify into. And I'd excelled in family law on my LPC. I won an award for my grade in family law. I thought that this was something I thought at least want to experience it as a trainee. And that's the really difficult thing, is you do your training contract and you're rotated around 4 departments normally, but if you don't know what you want to do, it's like, what am I going? It's so determinative of what your future career could be.
And it's frustrating as well, because you've waited for so long, patiently, done all the right things, climbed the Everest to get to the top, to be treated in that way, where I can imagine it's just causes a lot of, and taking the loan out to come in, and all these elements which compound into the promise at that point wasn't fulfilled on what I'd imagine what you were hoping for to receive from them.
Yeah.
That caused a lot of frustration.
And that, Taz, is something I'm so passionate about, is how juniors and trainees are treated in the legal profession, because it is so competitive. You feel so thankful that you've got this opportunity. And I speak to people all the time, unfortunately, that are saying about some really bad practices that are still happening. And I hate saying it. I feel so conflicted, because obviously I've started Later On Lawyers. I mentor people. I just, I know that people feel so passionately about this profession of ours, but there is some really bad stuff that's still going on. And I feel like I've seen and borne witness to that over my experience across 3 different law firms, both to myself and to other people. And I just, I think that we've still got a way to go. And I think that you can be made to feel very disposable as well. We haven't got time tonight to talk about different other things, but maybe that's another time. But it's just made me very passionate about protecting junior members of staff and those first early experiences you have, just because you feel so thankful that you've got this rare opportunity doesn't give an employer the permission to treat you badly or make you feel bad about your personal circumstances, to discriminate against you, to bully. And
interestingly, just to jump in, is that when you would have had that conversation with whoever that person was, you would have been at that time a mature woman, a mother of kids. You can only imagine what's happening to the young 20, 21-year-old, 19, 20-year-old who's very much still a youth or a young adult. They might not have the confidence to have that conversation or to put themselves put themselves in that place.
Well, this is what I heard with my younger peers, and I connected with them and spoke to them. Was they would say, well, it's not great, but we'll just get through it. And I would think, I don't want to just get through something. This is my training experience. This is why I don't want to just be spat out the other end and be a day one solicitor and not got a clue what I'm doing. Like that, it's not a hoop jumping exercise for me. This is me training to be a completely new profession, which is a highly regulated, challenging thing. I'm going to be put in front of clients, giving them legal advice and up for a negligence claim if I don't do a good job. So, I'm here to be fully immersed and get a really rich training experience. So yes, I did find that. And I saw it. I mean, I had an absolutely lovely paralegal that I worked with who was a lifeline to me. And she just seemed to get annihilated at her desk. She was there 1 minute and she was gone the next. And, I spoke to her and it didn't seem to be, I can speak really well. I can say what everyone about this law firm, because it doesn't exist anymore. So that's why I'm speaking freely about it. But these are the things I saw, and it was an utter shock.
I came surprised it doesn't exist anymore.
Got taken over by another one. Anyway, I could go on and on, but I just conscious of time.
So let me pass into then. Now you've left. You've gone to a new firm. You've qualified as a family solicitor. Or you've qualified as a solicitor in a family firm. In a family firm. That's a better way of saying it. So first thing is, what happens after that point? And then I want to go into talking about Later On Lawyers.
Yeah. It's a bit of both, actually. So it's good.
Are they mixed into each other?
They're pretty much mixed. So I felt after all of this that I wanted to have a bit of a break. I'd actually been headhunted, been approached by another law firm. I don't know what happened. That just before I qualified, there was a surge of law firms recruiting. So I was going for lots of NQ interviews, and this is what I say to people. I waited all these years to get a training contract. Then I got 2, and then I got offered like 4 NQ positions. So it was just like a bit of a vindication.
For you at the end.
It's just like, what is happening here? Anyway, so I accepted one of them, but I said, look, I really want to have a break. And what happened was, my husband, he'd worked for his company for 10 years and have a fantastic scheme where you can have a paid sabbatical. And so I sort of stole that and supercharged it. And so he had 2 months off, but I took 6 months off. So I did a Stacey Solomon on the house, because that was needed after all these years of, focusing on law, and put it all up for Airbnb. And we went off traveling for 3 months last year all around Southeast Asia as a family. So that was, really special. And the law firm said they'd wait for me, which was incredible. So that's what happened last year. But I really loved the law firm. And again, it was a full-time position, which I was a little bit ambivalent about, but I asked for this flexible working. And but it was in a new area of law that I'd only touched on in my training, contentious probate. But I thought it's litigation and it's people, and I think it's not far from family law. It will use a good transfer of my skills and experience. And I really loved the look of the firm and the offer. So I went with that, and I started that in September last year. But I found it really challenging. I found it a very challenging area of law to get up to speed with. And I hadn't really had experience in my training of the billing and the targets that comes with being a qualified solicitor. Plus I had flexible working agreed, but with all these bills and targets and expectations, actually it didn't really work in practice. I was rushing to the school pickup and then quickly coming back to my desk and, right, kids, can you just sort yourselves out whilst I go back to work? That wasn't really what I wanted. I just sort of realized in January, like, this isn't really working for me. It's not really working for the family. I think this isn't the area of law that I want to go into. And I need to just get off, get off the hamster wheel again, because I really tried hard to meet all of these bills and targets and everything. And I'll be honest, I burnt out really quickly, because it's also networking and business development, recruitment. There's a lot of expectations as a solicitor in a big law firm. And so, I left that in January, and I've just been taking the last few months out to just refocus my career where I really want it to be. And alongside that was obviously the later on lawyers. So when I took off to have this sabbatical last year, I thought, I better do something on LinkedIn, because everyone's got a professional profile, and that was not really a thing in local authority for me at that time. I'd never needed to have one. So I started on LinkedIn, and I quickly came across Jen Shipley, this sort of, she's a legal influencer. And she posts a lot about people's wonky paths to law, and it doesn't matter how long it takes you. And I think somebody said something like, I'm just about to start my LPC and I'm 37 or something like that. And I said, don't worry. Or they said, it's 10 years since I did my law degree. So I just put in the comments and said, don't worry. I've just qualified at age 41, and it's 23 years since I first stepped foot inside my uni lecture theatre for undergrad, and it can be done. Don't worry about it. And I've done it all part time and And so I left it, and then a few weeks later, Jen contacted me separately and said, "Do you mind if I repost your comment and does a separate post?" And so she did that, and she said, if anyone's looking for inspiration about, convoluted journeys into qualification, look no further than Mel, and did this little thing and cut and pasted my comment. And it got all of these likes, and then it had all of these comments, people saying, I'm 50 and I'm doing, I was thinking about doing it. And all of these anxieties that people had about, ancient law degrees or feeling ancient or anything like that. And so I just thought, hang on, there's something here. We all need to be connected together, because everyone's feeling a little bit isolated and disparate, and there's actually more people out here than I think. Mm-hmm. And I never thought that my journey would be a source of inspiration to other people, but if it is, then amazing. And so I just came into my head later on lawyers, And I remember I said, running upstairs to my husband and saying, I've got there's 3 other later on lawyers. And now there's 360 a year later. We're just about to have our first birthday, the later on lawyers.
Happy birthday for them.
Thank you. And I love it. I love running the group. I want to do more with it. I want to connect and engage the members more. It's very much driven by me. I just try and post as much as I possibly can, job adverts, training contracts. But I've done quite a lot of webinars, which has been a great experience for me because I've not had to do them before. And we've done a career change workshop. So it's been a great year, and I'm really proud of the group. And I've got to do things like this. It's been really good. So
it's so random how it happens with one comment from Jen Shipley, and then it's almost like you are introduced to your new community in a way. And then later on, Lawyers is born. As I've always said, it's a great name.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's nice to know because it is such an inspiring story. I know we're limited for time. Otherwise, I wanted to go into more aspects of it. But I think it's it shows people really that it doesn't have to be this linear path. And actually, if you take more of a broader perspective on your life, and you don't have to give up everything for law, and it can be, you can do it when you're ready to do it. And then to add to that, on multiple occasions, you followed your heart and you said, this isn't working for me. And you dropped it, and then you went into something else, and then you came back. And I think that for me and for someone listening is it's so reassuring to hear, because the image is, if you don't get it on your if you don't get it on your LLB, you failed. That's the theme that we're told when we're in law school. So I feel like the journey that you've been on, you've followed it to the end, you've qualified, and now it's about finding direction. And it sounds like along the way, a project of passion was born later on, Lawyers there, which is a great community. And I think as I've said to you, I think it's going to bring a lot of people together. And it's so nice to know that even when people pop up to me, if they're thinking, I'm thinking of having a career change, you're the name that comes to my mind. So I'm really excited for the community and the next stages of it. And it's just been really amazing to kind of have you on, have the actual founder on, and hear the journey that led you to later on Lawyers. What do you see? What do you want in the next 6 to 12 months for the community? What do you want for it? How do you want to grow it? Do you know which direction you want to take it, or is it, again, are we back to just it's going to be a natural evolution of it?
I've got so many ideas, because what I see on the community is people from so many different backgrounds thinking about or converting to law, and it's just unbelievable, the diversity. People from professional industries like medicine, or there's a lot of ex-military, vets that go into law, but there's ex-Olympians. There's people from musical theatre. There are people that have done property development, people that have done jobs that don't, are just so far and disparate. It's just really, I'd love to connect them all together. What I want is more engagement and to build in more support. And sometimes people have come up and said, hey, if there's any other military vets on here and they want any advice, I've gone through it, and these are the other community support groups, and I'm happy to buddy or mentor someone. I would absolutely love there to be a mentoring scheme within later on Lawyers. That's something I'm really keen. I mean, one of the challenges of the group is that sometimes people are pursuing this career change very much on the down low. They have got they're in a course of employment, they may be studying on the weekend or kind of say in secret, but they're not announcing it. They don't want it on their public profile, that I'm really engaging in this group and I'm pursuing another career, because that's not going to go down too well necessarily. So, there's at least, when I've run a poll, it's at least, about a third that just want to sit there, that don't want to be recognised, or just want to just sit in the background and just see what comes up in the group, that don't necessarily want to sort of engage. So I do want to just build more engagement, buddying and mentoring, and I'm really hoping to sort of launch just like informal kind of regular networking sort of breakfast meetings or something like that, so that people can just connect a bit more with one another.
Well, what we're going to do is we'll make sure when this episode is published, we will put everything in the links in the description. If someone's looking for the group, where can they go to find you?
Yeah, well, you can find, if you go for me, Melanie Arenss, on my LinkedIn profile, it should be on there, and on my feed, everything that I do, you can click on Later On Lawyers, and it's Later On Lawyers on LinkedIn. It's a public group, so you just have a look, have a scroll, and then join if you want to, or you can message me directly if you've got any questions. I'm always happy to help people wherever I can.
Well, for anyone listening, that is the place to go to. Melanie's a great founder. That group is going to bring a lot of value, I have no doubt. It already is adding a lot of value. And I also like seeing the comments that you do when you publish something on LinkedIn. It gets good engagement. People, I feel like you've uncovered a hidden community, is what it is, and it's exciting.
It's really exciting. And I did a recent poll, and I said, what do the members feel like the challenges are as career changers? And it came up with ageism, juggling, financial concerns. And so I think that people in that group, they're also it's such a massive decision to change your career, and nobody voted for that. The challenge was like leaving their, feelings around leaving their current career. I think everyone's sort of excited about the, moving into the next thing. But law is not an easy option. This is not, a small undertaking in any sense of it. And if you've got children as well, that's another dimension. As I say, I like to offer that. And only this afternoon I've been speaking with a medic who's converting to law and is also a parent, and wanted to talk to me about my experiences. So I'm always honest, so that anyone that contacts me, they'll definitely get honesty as well. And it's, as I say, I'm a sort of warts and all, I would say all the things that were great and the things that are really challenging, but it's only my experience, and I have so many friends in law that have got different experiences, but I just share my one.
But and I think as the founder is what you'll end up putting people in touch from massively different corners of life, that in sharing your story, you've brought everyone together. And I think that's the special thing.
Thank you.
On that note, I think I'm conscious not to keep us any longer than 7:30. I appreciate we've gone a bit over, but I just wanted to say, from everyone here at Legis Lab, thank you for coming on, sharing your story. It's been great to have you on. I've really enjoyed the conversation. And as I've said, when you're ready, just let me know, and I'd love to come on and have a discussion on Later On Lawyers. Absolutely.
Yep. As I say, I've got so many ideas bubbling that I just need to put them into action. But you'll definitely be a guest for me too.
Looking forward to it.